The promise of generative AI is that it can think for us, right? And that is a truly fascist idea, the idea of outsourcing thinking. And so our is in our ability to think with each other, to generate genuinely new ideas. If they get what they want, like if they summon their digital god and get AGI, it kills all the jobs, right?
And what do we do
And
then? I feel like we
what
never
do we
talk
do
about
then?
that. What do we
Right. And in the meantime, all it's doing is producing glitchy slop, and it's making people's electricity bills go up. We've seen this most clearly with Elon Musk. Most people thought of him as probably the highest profile green tech entrepreneur on the planet. And this is the guy who decides he's going to power Grok with 35 methane powered, rigged together
Yeah,
uh,
poison a
um,
city.
and
Yeah.
poison a city. So we really shouldn't play along with this idea that it can be green. There's no way to greenwash this. And they say things like, oh, it'll solve climate change, but it's just silly. We will either transition our economy off of fossil fuels and lower our emissions in time to avoid maybe 2 degrees, or we will build a world covered in data centers in order to summon a digital god
Who's not coming?
who's not coming. And their extreme wealth derangement is connected to this because they are smart enough to know that they're setting the world on fire. We're in a negative feedback loop because they need more and more money to fortress themselves against the hellscape that they are creating. Once they feed enough data and have enough power and have enough compute, eventually they'll have this very ill-defined thing called AGI or superintelligence, the point at which the majority of human economic activity can be replaced by AI. There's a tragedy here, I have to say, Alex, with the fact that we were just starting. I mean, we weren't all the way there by any means, but we were just starting to see some of the numbers go in the right directions around the price of renewables, around big economies like India and Pakistan really getting serious, and China about electrification and renewables. And at this very moment, right, when markets are starting to collapse, what do you know? This lifeline is extended to the fossil fuel sector, and it's just build all of these data centers and power them with fossil fuels. Donald Trump calls AI data centers electricity eating monsters, and he considers it a compliment. This is actually how he got on board with AI because he didn't used to like it. He didn't start talking about AI for the first few months of this presidential campaign. What seems to have changed his mind was when a bunch of Silicon Valley venture capitalists, a few months before the 2024 presidential election, explained to him just how much electricity, specifically fossil fuel energy, they wanted to use. And then he got on board with it because he had already said to the fossil fuel companies, if you give me $1 billion, I'll make all your dreams come true. He can do a lot of things. You know, he can roll back all kinds of climate regulations and he can pull the US out of the Paris Accord, but he can't actually create new markets for these companies. And that is what AI has done. So it has extended this lifeline. I don't see how it can be made sustainable, which is not the same as saying that I don't see potential positive uses for AI, in the climate sphere, but they're not these large language model, generative AI massive build outs. Those are separate issues that are being conflated very deliberately. They're using the good things that we want, like we want to use this for medical research. We want to use this for, more efficiency for use of renewables. You have the irony that at the same time as this is being rolled out, we have attacks on that kind of research going on across post-secondary education. This is an opportunity for us to ask, what is our economy for? What is technology for? What are humans for? What do we value? Because this mania is so out of control that we've actually gotten to the point where, the richest men in the world are telling us that they're summoning digital gods or digital demons, if it's Elon Musk or if it's Sam Altman, literally saying that they can foresee a future where the entire world is covered in data centers. And then Google comes in and says, or maybe we'll just circle outer space with data centers. So, you know, if that is not the future we want, we clearly have to dream a different future and we clearly have to make very different decisions. Once Trump was brought on board, the AI bubble, he aligned himself with these Silicon Valley executives. We all saw the picture from inauguration and everyone said, "Oh, what's going on? We thought these guys were liberals." They determined that they wanted a Wild West for AI. The way to get as rich as possible was just eliminating even the mildest kinds of regulations that were being introduced by the Biden administration, by the European Union. They don't want any of it. They want the kind of frontier that, Mark Andreessen had in the early days of the internet when they convinced governments that they couldn't tax things that went on the internet because they needed a frontier. So they wanted AI frontier. They don't want any rules. There were modest regulations that the Biden administration was introducing, things like on federal lands, if you build a data center, it has to be fueled with renewable energy, things like that. Sensible regulations. And they did not want that. And they rebelled. They backed Trump, and Trump immediately declared an energy emergency, which opened the faucet for all of these coal plants that were being decommissioned to be brought back online, nuclear power plants to be brought back online, massive new coal, new LNG infrastructure, the kinds of things that Elon Musk is doing in Memphis, where he's just jerry rigging, these massive gas fired methane turbines, creating his own unpermitted power plant. It's all because they've declared an emergency, right? Their definition of US AI dominance is the whole world using American tech. That's the way they've defined it. This is where we are. We have to understand that.
It's also not just the US. I mean, watching the Starmer administration accelerate data center zoning and planning and like usurping local councils and saying we want to build these things in green belts because basically the future of our economy is this vague conception of AI growth. It does feel like there are lots of, center left governments that aren't as autocratic.
With Starmer, I think AI is just another face for austerity, right? I mean, this is the other thing that's happening is that because these companies have built out all of this capacity, I mean, we mentioned the bubble, they need customers really badly, and the market is not liking their product, right? We're hearing more and more the businesses aren't seeing the kinds of efficiencies that they promise. So there is no market for what they have just built. There's a huge gap. And unfortunately, governments are kind of marks a little bit, right? So it's like, um, and so, by the way, I say with much chagrin, our universities, where I work,
Yeah.
right? I think the bailout has started, right? AI now has been flagging this, but the bailout has started with these contracts, right? Where our governments are buying very faulty tech. And they're like, thank you very much.
Gobbling it up. Nobody
No,
wants this.
no, this
Yeah.
is literally the plot of
Yeah.
every dystopian film any of us have ever seen. We
Yeah.
very actively don't want this. We've been scaring ourselves with it for a really long time. And then they're just like, let's just use it as
Let's
a
just do it.
how-to guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a three-legged stool, right, of this emergent fossil tech economy where one leg is fossil fuel, which are looking for their new market, and then the other leg of the stool is the state. And that includes the police state and the military state, which is also gobbling up these technologies. So that's what's holding this together. The public is really not part of this at all. They're reinforcing each other at the moment. I think it's really important for us to understand that the fossil fuel sector was panicking about the fact that, solar was for the first time cheaper than gas when coal plants were being decommissioned. And they're holding up this sort of notional nuclear fusion, which how many notional technologies can we pile on top of each other, right? Like AGI is notional and
Yeah.
it's going to be fueled by a notional energy source. But in the meantime, what we're going to actually have is fossil fuels fueling AI slop, because those are the two things we know for sure. So we've got slop fueling slop, and it's a fantastic economy.